Are you tired of mowing your lawn? Well, we are here today to talk about how to get rid of your lawn. And Mr. Michael Judd and I are going to do a little bit of question and answer, and he's going to give us a tour first of a special thing called a food forest. And he's putting one of them together, and it is predominantly right now going to be pawpaw. But he has support species here, and he's going to explain that. So, Mr. Michael, will you give us a tour, please?
Sure, happy to. So to start with, a food forest is not growing food in the forest, it's growing food like the forest. So when we look at a healthy forest system, we see a lot going on, right? We got overstory, mid-story, understory, we got shrubs, vines, it's all pumping. So we take that observation, we come out onto our lawn, like, okay, I want to start planting fruit trees, I want to stop mowing. How do I start doing that? So I break it down into a patch, a fruit patch. So by doing a patch here and another patch there and another patch there and another patch there, you start to put together the bones of this future food forest, but out in the open, ideally in full sun, and start removing your lawn by creating these big mulch circles, 8-10 feet in diameter. Dump your wood chips, your cardboard, get your sheet mulch on there, your straw, your manure, and that kills the grass and starts to build up a really nice fertility for your fruit tree to come down into the center of, right? And then I like to plant companions. In my case, I use running ground covers because I have, like 3 acres of food forest I manage. If I just had 1 or 2 patches in my backyard, I'd probably fill this up with, gooseberries and black currants and other kinds of pollinator plants. But to help maintain this for me, I use the running comfrey, mints, all kinds of great ground covers. And that then takes over that early stages of putting down your organic matter, and then that helps keep your soil pulsed with organic matter for the fungi, holds the moisture. So then you can keep expanding these too every year if you want by putting down more wood chips, more straw, more cardboard, and before you know it, your lawn is gone and you can have all kinds of great space to plant into. Now typically for my smaller fruit trees, I'll put them about 15 feet apart. You can also put nut trees in here, overstory trees, and I do have some hybrid chestnuts in here that eventually will start to create an overstory. And the cool thing about pawpaws, and these are all pawpaw trees by the way around us, is that they'll take partial shade. You'll get less fruit, but they'll still grow. So now we're starting them out in full sun, and as those overstory nut trees come in, they'll still stay productive. So it's sort of early succession here in transitioning the lawn to ultimately being a place that's full of nutrient-rich nuts. Pawpaws and fruit are great, but when it comes to the wintertime in the north, you're gonna want some nuts.
Awesome. So let me see if I have this straight here now.
Yeah.
So we have a tree that has an island of self-fulfilling ground cover around it, if you will.
Yeah.
And it acts as mulch, and you can chop it multiple times a year.
Yes. This is running comfrey, a wonderful ground cover. It comes up very early in the spring, and it is loaded with blue flowers that the early pollinators absolutely love. Very important source for them in the early season. And then what'll happen, it'll flower and then it'll die back, or you can come and chop and drop it with a weed whacker or a machete, and that pulses it to regrow. Now it'll do it on its own as it's doing here now because I didn't get out here and cut it back this year, but it's going to start to regrow itself. So it's pulsing all this organic matter down into the soil. It feeds the soil, right? Some people call this green manure, right? Because your plants are doing the functions for you. Yes, jumpstart it, get your organic matter in there, your cardboard, your wood chips, your straw, and that gets it all jump-started, but then ideally your plants are then gonna do that for the decades to come. So you set the stage and then it thrives for itself. Use the plants to help each other. Now I also put in nitrogen fixers a lot of times, especially when my trees are young. I'll put in lead plant, false blue indigo, all lupins. There's a lot of nitrogen fixers that you could put in here to help fix more nitrogen. You could put in insectary plants, things like yarrow, that have a really cool architecture for beneficial insects to live in. Pollinator plants, echinacea. Put in these little gas stations for the critters that are going to come in, and then they're going to see your fruit flowers, and they're going to go and help you pollinate. You can really stack this. I cover this really well in my first book, Edible Landscaping with the Permaculture Twist, where you can put these plants in combinations that support your main producer, right? So this information is out there. It's not super complicated, but it makes all the difference in things thriving without you constantly being on the hook to feed and maintain the system. So you can go chill, hang out in the hammock, do your yoga, be with your kids. If you're smart and you put a little bit of design up front, things will thrive.
That's awesome. So we have this island here, and as the tree grows, you'll let the ground cover grow, and it will eventually grow all in together and form a forest here. But
Yeah.
I have one big question.
Yeah.
What the heck is a pawpaw?
Pawpaw is a tropical fruit that grows in the north. There's nothing else like it in the north. It's basically a custard apple. Here we go. We got a single one there. Usually they grow in groups here. We got some young ones here in July. These are going to come larger, probably about the size of a mango, and they'll be producing in September. And they have a custard-like consistency with flavors of banana, pineapple, mango. Is absolutely a tropical tree. I mean, look at these leaves. I mean, this is a tropical species that migrated, over millenniums into the north and surviving now in the cold. So there's nothing like it. It is one of the best tropical fruits I've ever had. And I've traveled the world trying fruits everywhere, and pawpaw is top of my list. So definitely recommend planting them. They grow in about zone 5 down through zone 9. They like lots of moisture, but they also like drainage. So you want to have a place that's out of strong winds. Lots of mulch will help with that moisture need. And then, I keep mine cut back at about 8 feet. If you let them go in full sun, which is what's ideal for your most fruit with pawpaws, they might get 15, maybe 20 feet tall. Beautiful pyramid-shaped tree, gorgeous leaves. I call this an edible landscape all-star. It's one of the highlighted ones in my webinar. I have a free webinar out there on my top 5 favorite bush fruits and my top 5 favorite tree fruits. So check that out and you'll learn a lot more. I wrote a whole book on pawpaws, the love of pawpaws. So if you really want to dive deep on the pawpaw, check out my work, and you could be having tropical fruit growing right in your yard.
And can that be purchased at ecologiadesign.com?
You can find links there for all my stuff. I also have courses on pawpaws and other growing mushrooms, all kinds of useful information. Some free, some a good investment for your journey into getting your landscapes pumping without a lot of input. Because I've learned over years and years of growing and trialing things and designing for neglect. Because I find that even with the best intentions, sometimes that's what happens. So my designs and my approach are more foolproof in how you set the stage, you pick the right species for the right environment, and things thrive. So sometimes these uncommon fruits are the easiest and most rewarding to grow. So I like to focus on them.
Awesome. Anything else to add to
No,
your food forest here?
Well, over time, this is, you're not going to have to mow this, and you'll just be coming through with your wheelbarrow, and loading up instead of out here trying to mow all the time. And then it creates habitat as well. The diversity to your ecosystem for creating these food forests is exponential. So you're doing something really wonderful for the ecosystem and for yourself. They're gorgeous, so you're getting fed in many ways. So yeah, food forests are wonderful. They feed the soul and the body.
So this is one of your more recent food forests. Maybe in another video we can take a look at one of your more established
Let's go look at one of the more established. This one's probably about 6-7 years old from scratch. So you can see how this regeneration begins. We do have some huge overstory black walnut trees around here.
So in 6 or 7 years, we can get fruit like that.
Yes, this cultivar is sunflower. So every pawpaw out here in this food forest, I probably have a good 25 or 30 pawpaws. They're all different grafted cultivars.
Awesome.
All different types of delicious variations of the pawpaw. Potomac, and this one's sunflower. Sunflower is a very popular older variety. It's very vigorous. It's a good one to grow for starters as well. But all the pawpaws are absolutely delicious. All the cultivars are anyway.
I'm sorry for interrupting. So
no, it's great.
You just said 6 or 7 years, and I'm like, all that fruit in 6 or 7 years. Look at that.
So typically with the pawpaw, if it's happy in full sun and it's got a really nice mulch and food system for itself, 6 years is when they'll start to begin to produce. I think this is almost the first year this one's producing. The sunflower, it's very vigorous, compared to, another tree in another site, it may not be fruiting yet. Typically when they get about 6 feet tall and they're happy, they'll start to fruit for you. In best circumstances, that's about 6 years from seed, but a grafted cultivar will shorten that a little bit. You might, if you get a grafted pawpaw, after it gets established, you could be getting fruit the next year or 2 years later. So a grafted pawpaw will shorten your time. But I don't really recommend, I recommend taking those fruits off of a young tree. If you have a young grafted pawpaw and it's a small tree and it's got fruit on it, I would take those off as hard as it is, because you want the energy to go into growing and getting a strong, healthy tree to give you multiple harvests over multiple years versus straining it to try and put all the energy into a fruit. It's hard to do, but ideally take the fruit off of young trees, put that energy into the tree itself, and you'll be well rewarded for decades to come.
I understand that. So before I interrupted you, you were just starting on these huge black walnuts right here. They got to be what, 100 foot tall?
Yeah, that one's at least 100 years old. We've got some 300-year-old black walnuts here. Now, black walnuts get a bad rap, you know, because they excrete a chemical called jugalone in their roots. But there's so many things that thrive with the black walnut, like the pawpaw, like elderberries, like goumis, like mulberries, like persimmons. They all grow fine with the black walnut. You know, you might struggle with tomatoes or potentially, you know, apples or something, a couple of the very popular, you know, American, you know, fruits, so they get a bad rap. But trust me, tons of stuff grow well with the black walnut. And one of the cool things about black walnut is that the canopy and the light filter really well below. They're not a dense canopy. So you can grow really nice, even if it's your lawn. They're actually a nice add to your lawn, to animal systems. And then if they're in your food forest, you're still going to be probably getting plenty of light for your other plants. So
I've heard some people say you can't even grow grass under a black walnut, but I look, there's tons of grass growing. It grows
great.
Here.
Actually, silvopastoral systems are where you're integrating tree crops and animals, grazing animals. And the black walnut is one of the preferred trees to put into your animal grazing systems because it has that more dappled light. And the studies show that actually the grass grows stronger and better when you have that dappled light versus full open sun. So yeah, and honey locust, another great one, which produces a really nutrient-rich pod. It has that light leaf cover, so it actually stimulates and helps your grass grow, feed your animals, and then bring in more fodder and nutrients for your animals at the same time. So all of this is moving toward how do we bring back in more perennial food into our ecosystems and into our diets, because they support both. You know, the tree crops are key to a regenerative future and health. So look into them, plant them up.
Wow. Well, we thank you very much for your time here today, Michael. I hope you have a wonderful day.
It's a pleasure. I'm enjoying it.
And to our viewers, I hope you have a wonderful day as well.
Cheers.